Coming up on Help Before You Sell. I personally don't think the funnel is a bad analogy. Explaining the funnel is the problem.
I personally do not want people signing up for my highest value services 7 seconds after opting in, because those people are highly likely to not resonate with me.
It fundamentally speaks to a slowing down of process, of expectation, of time, and thinking about who you are and what you do and how you do it. So by the time they actually get into a face-to-face with you, it's like, okay, where do we start? How do we start working together? Does marketing and content creation ever feel hard and time-consuming? What if it didn't have to be that way?
Join Rob Drummond,
Matthew Bliss,
and me, Pete Daly-Dickson, your ideal companions on the journey to a value-first approach to business growth, here on Help Before You Sell.
I would like to start this conversation by reading you a section of an email I received from a guy called Jason Leister. And he says that what you know is becoming far less valuable than who you are. Why is that? Because who you are provides the filter through which what you know is transformed into the progress your customers and clients want. All of this runs counter to the training of the matrix, because it shows that you are the true value, not something you do or something outside of yourself. The challenge in this is that this approach requires a few things. First, you have to know who you are. Second, you have to know what you stand for. Third, you have to be willing to demonstrate that to the world. Finally, you have to accept the polarizing effect these choices create, as your beingness separates those who resonate with you from those who do not. This is about as far as you can get from traditional selling, but traditional selling is dying. The rising level of human consciousness will soon reach a point where that behavior will no longer be tolerated. My hunch is that we're already at that point. To give credit to Jason's business is sovereignbusiness.org. But I firstly wondered how that section, I've been thinking about that section all morning because I think it really summarized what we're trying to do with Help Before You Sell. And actually, if you are going to communicate who you are, first and foremost, you have to build a structure and make sure that you have mechanisms for communicating who you are, so that you don't just automatically jump to what you do. Any thoughts?
Well, the first thought that came to mind is I couldn't help but hear that with a huge smile on my face, in terms of an absolute resonance in every cell of my being, and confirmation that everything that the three of us have been talking about and I've been doing, not least of which the Not a Straight Line podcast started middle of last year, has all been about that. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm ahead of the curve. Well, not quite the first time, but you know what I mean? I feel like, I didn't wait for somebody to, I didn't wait to hear that from Jason. I kind of have been working for the last year, really. It's January last year that I set the intention of stopping driving. And what you just read there summarizes so succinctly and beautifully the force that I have sensed in me over the last 12 months.
It's reassuring when there are other people talking about this, and it's not just us. And reassuring when other people phrase it much more eloquently than I might have plucked out of the air as well.
Yeah. So that's it then. That's the end of our episode.
That's the end of the episode. Yeah. Another thought that I had. So I'm involved with Gareth Everson's Systems Wise podcast. So Systems Wise is a friend of Help Before You Sell. And we seem to spend every episode talking about what marketers call tofu, mofu, and bofu, which is top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. And the thing that we constantly lament is that most businesses treat every person, every potential client, as if they are bottom of funnel. Bottom of funnel people have a high level of awareness about who you are, what you do, what you can do for them. They know what they want. They just need pricing. They need quotes. They need to speak to you. They want to book an appointment. Even on LinkedIn, I see like loads of people with like a book an appointment link in the top of their profile. It's like, there's bad news, guys. No one on LinkedIn wants to book an appointment with you. So I think there's a great tendency to treat a lot of your potential clients like they are bottom of funnel traffic, because that is kind of where the money is. So we can kind of jump 17 steps at that point. And it's almost an act of bravery and an act of service to acknowledge that people are actually much higher in the funnel than you think that they might be, and to then build systems around that allow them to move down the funnel in their own time at their own pace in a way that makes sense to them, that is easy for them and easy for you. So then the question is like, well, what are those steps? And obviously that leads us into the conversation about structure, but the principle holds, I think, that most people are higher up the funnel than you want them to be.
So I hear that question, and I raise you another question, Rob, because I've heard you lament and moan and all the words about
I
this.
don't know, mate. I just speak truth.
Yeah, true that. About thinking about potential clients approaching your business in the form of that funnel, that kind of linear kind of view of, I'm going to start them at the top and then move them into the middle and then go to the bottom. Isn't that kind of at odds with other stuff we've been talking about here, like with the maze and thinking about the orbit of people around us?
It's true and it's false, because it's only a part of the picture. It's true that if you have a sequential step of nurture points or training points, or however you move people down the funnel, whether that's an email list, it's a weekly email, or it's a webinar, or however you move people down, you're always going to have more people at the higher points than you are at the lower points. So by the time you get to sales calls at the bottom of the funnel, there will be fewer people booking sales calls than there will be opting into your email list at the top. So the literal shape of the funnel is a mathematical fact. My question then is okay, well, that creates this numbers game. So like, what happens to all of the people who fall out of the funnel partway down and just kind of fall into the abyss? Like, the funnel thinking doesn't address those people, because some of those people were never going to buy, but some of them might have bought in the future if you were able to help them correctly, nurture them correctly. Those people make it your waiting market rather than the buying market. And every business has a buying market, the people who are kind of ready to go now. If you can show them the correct social proof and make them the right offer and have create the right feeling of vibration. But most service businesses that sell high value services and high value products have a bigger waiting market of people who might be ready in the future. Time isn't quite right. They maybe don't have the money right now. If it's a B2B setting, maybe they don't currently have the decision-making capability, but after their promotion next year, maybe they will, and they're going to go, right, I want these guys. So the funnel analogy, it's not wrong. It just isn't the complete picture. And it's quite wasteful, because it creates this numbers game where you just, the answer is to add more traffic and to push more people through the funnel and to grow and expand. It's like,
isn't the analogy part of the problem? And the three of us have not been shy of having our own perspective and vocalizing our own perspective on things. And particularly in light of what you just shared at the top of the conversation, Rob, that quote from Jason's email, is maybe we need to fundamentally rethink the whole idea about a funnel, because apart from anything else, a funnel implies you put something at the top and the gravity will pull it through. You don't need to do any effort. And I'm wondering whether, if we actually think of, again, going back to what you said about Jason, that people are buying you, that you are at the center of this, and think of yourself as like a magnet, if you like. And the further people are away from you, the less powerful that magnetic force is going to be. So you may have to do more, help more, communicate more to draw them into your awareness. And as people are getting closer into your orbit, I don't know. For me, that analogy implies that I'm always going to have to be doing and being in order to attract, as opposed to just shoving leads or whatever at the top of the funnel and then hoping or trying to build systems to move them down.
And then sitting on the beach and waiting for the dollars to roll in.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I've said precious little so far, if only because I feel like there's a lot of revealing discussion happening here. Like immediately when Peter, you're talking about that magnet thing, I thought of one of those claw machines that kind of, you play the game and it hovers over sections, and as the magnet gets closer to things, it would be drawn into its orbit a little bit. I'm also reading a book at the moment, Seven Eves, which discusses a lot about gravitational orbits.
Neil
So
Stevenson.
I can't recall the
Oh,
author.
no. I know the book you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a contrived concept. I won't try to explain here because we're not trying to sell a book and help people buy it. But it talks about gravitational orbits as well, and it aligns very closely to what you're talking about as well. But I personally don't think the funnel is a bad analogy. What I think is the approach that people take to explaining the funnel is the problem, which is what you're trying to address with the analogy, Pete. There's also the idea that the funnel is a great structure for a way to think about the way that people buy into your ecosystem. But the emergent changes and cyclical process with how people go about it, that is the thing that will change over time. So the way that Rob and probably passively Jason there was explaining it, it made me think, well, yeah, you should treat the entire funnel the same. The way that we're pushing it forward is that reveal as much of who you are as possible to the entire funnel. You don't want to obscure yourself only to the very bottom. You want people to stick around for the entire thing. But at the moment, we have our Daniel Priestleys, we have our people out there trying to tell you how to structure the passage through the funnel. So they're trying to alter gravity and make it easier to slide down the edges, perhaps. Maybe they're oiling up the sides so that it's easier for people to get to the bottom of the funnel, but also make the portal in between, like a score app or a concise offer or, whatever that might be, that passage through the funnel a little bit quicker. Whereas before that, it was probably a lot of, well, your top of funnel is your email list. Build your email list. This is the quickest way to get people into the top of your funnel. And then it's up to you to do the rest. Because someone else that I follow, James Smith, who is an English, well, previously PT, now operating out of Australia, his big product at the moment is how to create social media campaigns and create landing pages and squeeze pages to bring people into your product. But that's his product as well. He's got a course, he's got things to do that. But he's covering the process of moving through that funnel in its entirety. That is what he is selling. But in probably what is an excellent case study for us, he is selling himself at the very top of that funnel and sharing the information widely and freely with everybody. He is unpacking every step of what he's built over months to great success with millions of dollars in his pocket. He coaches, he masterminds, he courses, all these people doing these things. But the entirety of his focus is moving through that funnel. It's not about retaining. It's not about creating what kind of content you should create to do that. It is the passage through the funnel. So I think what changes over time with the funnel model is what we focus on, what the gurus are selling, and the methodology of moving through it. But the funnel is still like at the upside down pyramid or triangle that encapsulates how you put people in the buckets of where they are progressing to what is your top offer or your email list. I think that still makes sense somehow.
I think that the strength of it is it lends itself to implementation.
Mm.
It's like, okay, I've got a bunch of people at this step, and I want them to get to this step. So I'm going to these landing pages with these. It kind of provides a bit of a framework of like, okay, there's infinite things that we could do and infinite ways that people could move from the outside of our orbit to the center points of our orbit. What to me a funnel is, it's a predefined pathway from the outside to the inner. And actually in your orbit, you might actually have multiple funnels dotted around the orbit that are predefined pathways that people could go down.
Like wormhole. I like that. Like out
Yeah,
there in the universe, there are wormholes, and people can drop in them, and the wormhole brings them to the center.
because if you don't have that, you're actually quite hard to buy from.
Yeah. So what about Matt's point there, Rob, where he was saying that this guy that he follows is, in light of what Jason said, is communicating all of who he is right at the top of the funnel as he is at the bottom of the funnel. How does the tofu, mofu, bofu concept and framework, how does what you shared at the beginning of the conversation affect that implementation that you're talking about?
My own stance on this is that a lot of the content that people are putting out is what people want to see at the bottom of the funnel. Like it's the pricing, it's the proof, it's the benefits, it's the features, it's like all of the stuff that like people are doing anyway. The progression in my thinking, even just this year, has been to
Well, the last 3 days.
last few days. So, yeah, if you don't like the current plan, come back in 3 days because it's probably going to have changed. But I see a lot of people who make some marketing offer at the front end to get people in. And it's like, oh, I've got some free, like a free lead magnet. It's like, here's some cheese. And then you opt in and it's like, bam, here's the upsell. We've got a webinar coming up. It's what, $97 or whatever. It just feels a bit bait and switch and it feels a bit too soon. Like I think to me, and I'm still validating this and building up some data to support this, but I think it makes more sense to delay the offer ever so slightly. And you still have to find offer points within the first couple of weeks. I personally do not want people signing up for my highest value services 7 seconds after opting in, because those people are highly likely to not resonate with me and generally be a bit of a pain and take up too much of my time and so on. So what I'm saying is really for people like that who are like, okay, I'm working directly with you. We're going to create a big transformation, but we need to gel here. So I think you want to structure it so that you do have the offer points, but you delay them slightly. So in my sequences, what I do is I firstly give people what they've opted in for. So if they've opted in for the 7-day podcasting crash course, which people can do at activateyourpodcast.com, then the first thing we do is deliver the 7-day podcasting crash course. After that, I think there's then an opportunity to lean much more into your story. It's like, okay, you've given them what they wanted, and you might have a bit of a storytelling element as part of that initial delivery, but really it's just helping scratch an immediate itch because people opt in primarily to solve problems, not because they want to discover who you are at this point. But once you start to help them solve a problem, they go, this guy or girl knows what they're talking about. Who are they? Can I trust them? So then they want to, now you've got their attention and they've looked at the painting, they like the painting, they then look at the detail underneath the painting that talks about the artist. So then I've now got 2 sequences where I've got an orientation sequence. And actually in our world, that's the first 5 episodes of Help Before You Sell. So after people receive the 7-day podcasting crash course, they receive a 5-day sequence covering the 5 pillars of Help Before You Sell. So then we've got a bit of like an orientation around our work.
And us.
And us. I then extend that because I have a personal brand and people have to work specifically with me. So for any coaches, consultants, and so on, I have a 10-part, a 10-day email sequence after that, which is what I call my core story sequence, which is then much more about me. There are offer points at the end of the orientation sequence and at the end of the core story sequence, but not immediately after people opt in.
Yeah. Or after they've had delivered what they opted in for, you wait until they've been oriented.
I wait until they've been oriented. Yes. Again, it's a little litmus test, and I've got various mechanisms in place in High Level, which is my and the CRM system that we use. But you can track engagements, you can track flame scores, you can see who's actually engaging with this, because the people who are going to become clients are the ones that do open the emails. Or the people that you want to become clients aren't just ones who open one, read half a paragraph they liked, and decided to book a call with you. Like, that's probably going to waste your time. And actually, one of the reasons to do this is to avoid, like, we don't necessarily want more sales calls. We only want to have sales calls with great people who already share our values and know, like, and trust us. It might not actually be that you want more sales calls. You might just want to have 100% great sales calls.
Is that fundamentally then what help before you sell is helping people understand who you are and
Yeah,
how you are?
and they've got this polarization effect in the process of doing that. And there's helping them to understand who you are, but then there's also you helping them to begin solving their problem. I think it's dual faceted.
So if I can very quickly, before we wrap up, add an analogy that's been kind of building in my mind the more you've explained in the second half of this episode. Perhaps the way that people should conceptualize their funnel in our context is to think of each section of the funnel as a series of rooms. The way that people have been marketing on LinkedIn, book a call for the incredibly high value offer, and only that, is like being shoved into a concrete gray space in a line with cages and a pamphlet that says, hey, the last room, that's going to be the best room. That's where you get the good stuff. If you wait here long enough, or if you find a door that leads you to that room, like, it's going to be amazing. But at the moment, it's garbage. Whereas our approach is to make each room as lavish and opulent as the next. We also put out a buffet in every room. Like, we want to make sure people are comfortable. If they're happy to be there, we want to give them the value for staying in that space, if that's the space they'd like to stay. You know, this room has the deviled and Scotch eggs, and the next room has smoked salmon and avocado toast. Maybe they don't want avocado toast just yet. They're happy with Scotch eggs. They want to stay in the top of the funnel.
Is there a room that does vegan food?
There might be multiple funnels and orbits that have different kind of catering options.
There's all sorts in the buffet. Buffet's a great analogy.
Yeah, because it feeds people and it tells you what you want to feed them as well. It kind of gives them an idea of what you offer. A little bit about you and what you'd say. Like Peter saying, you know, do they offer vegan? Yes, here's my vegan funnel over here. And this is what I want to offer you of myself in this particular funnel. And then when they have an idea of who you are based on the opulence of all the rooms and the way you treat the entire funnel, that really gives you an idea at any stage that you're at, what the offer could be. And you're happy to stay where you are.
The other takeaway I got, Rob, from what you were saying is that it fundamentally speaks to a slowing down of process, of expectation, of time, and thinking about who you are and what you do and how you do it with a much longer time frame perspective.
We're farming, not
than
hunting.
I need. Yeah. Because so much of the marketing advice is do these 7 steps and you'll get clients now. And I guess that speaks to, a lot of business owners' desire to bolster cash flow and get clients and whatever. So how do we square those two sides of that round coin? This desire for like immediate or relatively short-term cash flow with what we're talking about in terms of taking a much longer, having a much longer term perspective of this process.
I think you're ready for the long-term perspective when you've been burnt by the perils of short-term cash flow and you've taken on the clients that you shouldn't have taken on, and you've been riding the roller coaster of sales, and it's feast and famine, and you want to get off that roller coaster. You want to build a more predictable pipeline of ideal clients, eligible to work with, and it doesn't take 90% of your week in marketing to try and do that.
And I guess also addresses what, coming full circle to the quote that you gave us at the top of the conversation, is it almost removes that selling step. Because by the time people have become fully attracted to you, using my analogy, or have gone all the way through the house and they're at that really comfy living room right at the center, which is the bottom of the funnel, they're satiated with everything they've had from the buffet. and they're warm and comfortable because the ambient temperature in the house is just absolutely spot on, and actually customizable for every person. Whatever temperature you want to be at, you can be at. So by the time they actually get into a face-to-face with you, it's like, okay, where do we start? How do we start working together?
It's a case of vibration. Now, we're all vibrational beings, and sales is a vibrational activity. So if someone comes in and they're completely cold, they're not vibrating at all, that's a tough gig. But if they come in and they're vibrating in the exact same way as you are, and there's resonance there, then you're not selling. You're just kind of working out a deal. You're just kind of working it out. Is it right? And if so, let's work out the next step.
I'm really glad the multiple room analogy took off. I feel like I landed a winner there.
We'll let you do some more analogies in future episodes.
I am 100% wins for 2025 so far.
1 for 1.
Another thing Jason Lysa does talk about is that within your orbit, you've got various ways that you help before you sell. So that could be a weekly email, it could be a monthly webinar, it could be a quarterly paid training course. And these are like spinning plates that all spin around it, and the plates overlap, but they all spin at different speeds. So like if you're a crazy person and you write a daily email, then that plate's spinning really, really, really quickly. But the daily email overlaps with the quarterly training course, which only comes around once a quarter. And then people have the opportunity every quarter to hop from one plate to the other. And obviously the quarterly training course is much closer to the inner orbit. And that's another way, another visualization that I quite like, of like, okay, people can move in, move out. I kind of like that as well.
Yeah, love it. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Help Before You Sell, sponsored by Activate Your Podcast. To activate your podcast and help the people who most need you and your services, head to activateyourpodcast.com/help. If you found this episode helpful, please also leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And remember, help more to sell more. See you next time.